Hello, everybody. I am Jen Trum, if you don't already know, and this is Thoughtful Tuesday Turnaround, or the Triple T. So, Thoughtful Tuesday Turnaround is going to be something that I'm going to be doing going live every Tuesday at this time. And really, it's my effort to really kind of bring some life into our Tuesdays. I think Tuesdays tend to be a day where, for most of us, we'll start out strong on Monday and very quickly kind of run into some kind of wall. And Tuesday is just down for the count typically. We are barely getting by the time we hit Tuesday. And so my goal is to really be able to give tips and tricks and ideas and tools and whatever I can do to help turn around those of us who are finding that by the time we hit Tuesday, we are just barely holding on. So anyway, I am really excited to be here. I'm thinking this may end up becoming a podcast, but it kind of depends on those who are interested in the topics and where it goes from here. But for now, I figure I'm just going to start coming on live, and I'm going to start by talking about the subjects that Catherine and I talk about in our Thrive and Shine HR podcast the day before. So for those of you who don't know, if you've been living under a rock, Catherine Fry and I co-host the Thrive and Shine HR podcast, and we do that live every Monday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. And she and I have so much fun every single week. It's about an hour. Originally, when she and I first started the podcast, we're like, I think we'll do about 45 minutes. And, that should be enough time. It may not be enough time. Maybe it'll be a little less. I literally have to leave by the time we hit an hour because I got to get my son to school. And we hit that hour now every single time because the content that we are bringing to the table, all of it is content she also then talks about the following day at our HR Power Hour. But all of it is so related and relevant to things that anybody in HR is challenged with, and especially women, and especially with the topics that we talk about. So anyway, yesterday was episode 15. And if you haven't had a chance to check it out, definitely do that. Depending on your flavor, if your flavor is listening on the podcast, I haven't yet dropped it yet. I typically try to drop on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, depending on my workload and everything else going on, but I should have that drop by tomorrow. So, but if you like watching it by video, then I will make sure to put a link to the video that we recorded yesterday morning. In addition, another thing that I did just recently that I think would be really of relevance to a lot of listeners and viewers out there is on Sunday, I got inspired and I went on for a whole hour and recorded a video that was basically just a recap of the Thrive and Shine HR first 14 episodes. I had so much fun. I wish that Catherine could have been with me. And I think when she and I hit 20, we might want to do a bonus episode that's just a recap episode of our first 20 episodes. I think that would be so much fun. But anyway, so I did that on Sunday on my own, and it was a blast because there were so many takeaways from every single episode that I was able to kind of go back through and say, oh my gosh, this was a big one that I thought about afterwards. This was an aha moment. There was a lot of that I was able to do. So I will attach the link of that to today's notes as well and give all kinds of fun other content you can check out what I've been putting out there. So with that, let's talk a little bit about what Catherine and I discussed in yesterday's livecast. So episode 15 was all about showing versus telling. And we started out the episode really going right at it and talking about how we really in HR have been sold the goods when it comes to what it is that we are expected to do by just being in HR. If you think about all the different things we are responsible for making sure other people know, right? You've got your employee handbook and you've got policies, you got procedure manuals, you got a safety manual, you got, where do I begin, right? Job descriptions. There's so many things that in terms of the human resources role, our role is making sure other people know these different things that are out there, right? Benefit manuals is another thing that comes to mind, right? So there's all these different things. And so as HR professionals, it can get really like challenging for us to be able to compartmentalize and say, okay, yes, part of the role that we have, we need to make sure that we're communicating so other people can follow things appropriately. And this other part of our role that we do, we have to be able to step out of that black and white. We have to be able to sometimes have curiosity around why things are the way they are, right? And I think sometimes we get so caught up in the it just is what it is, right? Like it got handed down and it's just what it is. So in HR, being able to kind of take that step back a little bit and actually say, I wonder why, and being able to kind of flip that a little bit, really, I think for me and Catherine has been a pretty amazing shift for us, because I think for both of us anyway, we can be pretty strong-willed individuals just as it is, but this process of kind of removing ourselves from being this like police officer type role in HR and actually becoming more like a part of it, participative, like be participative, meaning like kind of really engaging with it. I remember when I first started at my current role in an HR capacity, and I think many of you who are in HR can really relate to this, that when you have that opportunity to kind of look at things with fresh eyes, with new eyes, it's like, what a gift, what a gift to be able to do that. And so I always try to do that. I'm not perfect at it, but I think as part of my HR role, and one responsibility that I try to take on is like always like having an open mind that I may be missing something. And so what does that look like? Can I like look at this a little bit differently, especially if somebody else is coming at it with a different opinion? Then how can I like lean into that? And that's so hard to do. It's like we're so busy. There's so many other things going on. How can I slow myself down for like 5 minutes, in those circumstances? And it takes practice. It takes practice. So anyway, I went off on some tangents there, but we really had such a great time in that conversation yesterday. I highly recommend watching it or downloading the podcast. But one of the things that I wanted to do, I took away from that episode as I was driving to work after we were done recording yesterday. I was like, I wish that there was more time, and we're always wishing more time, more time. But one of the things I really thought about as I walked away from that episode was, what are the tools? What are some of the real tangible things that people can start doing right away when it comes to showing up as more of the best self that we want to be, right? Like, what can we start doing today? I want to be a better me. I want to be a better version of me. What can I do today? How can I start today? So I made a list of 10 things, and I'm going to go through it pretty quickly, and I won't keep you on too long. But for our first Thoughtful Tuesday turnaround, we're going to talk about the 10 things that you can start doing today that can help you start showing up more as the best self that you can be. All right. Number 1 is practicing self-compassion. Practicing self-compassion is super, super hard. We are very quick to judge ourselves, right? Like, we hear it all the time. You hear it in media, you hear it everywhere, right? We're always the harshest critic of ourselves. But how often do you really check in with that around being that critic, and whether or not you feel like you deserve that critic, and whether or not you feel like you deserve that to be prolonged? because I think a lot of times when something happens and we can be somewhat critical, we know there's something to learn and take away from it. But many times there is like this part of ourselves that will actually take it too far. And that's where self-awareness and self-understanding and self-compassion really come into play hugely when it comes to like stumbling and then like being able to like shake ourselves off and getting up and moving on and learning from whatever it is we need to learn and not like dwelling in it. So self-compassion is such a huge thing, and we can start doing it right away. I was just in a meeting this afternoon where there was at one point I kind of like said something that I immediately regretted because unfortunately there was someone else in the room and I could tell it made them uncomfortable. And it's like, what am I going to do in that moment? Right. And I think a lot of times in those moments we'll start to, I know for myself, my immediate gut reaction was like this defense. I was like, why are they so frustrated? You know, why are they so upset? And kind of this guard starts going up, right? Like immediately starting to kind of find my justification. And instead I like caught myself pretty quickly and I just said, oh, wait, what's happening here? And I was able to kind of tune in and recognize that if I could just like slow myself down enough and kind of soothe myself enough, then I knew that, you know, that individual, if they took it that way, it wasn't intentional, right? So I can come back around later after the meeting, I can circle up with them and I can just say, hey, you know, I want to just let you know. And so that's what I did. And I think that like, it's interesting that kind of these small shifts around, yes, that could have happened. But if I know within my core that that was not intentional, and I know in my heart what was intentional, then perhaps communicating that to that other individual can clear up any type of confusion. And I think there's opportunities like that all the time, but we'll get into that at another time. All right, number 2, in terms of how you can start showing up as your best self or a better version of yourself today, setting boundaries. Are you working more than you really feel comfortable with in your life right now? Are you at a place where you are overexerting yourself because you feel like you do not have any other choice? Are there areas of your life that you're really compromising in such a way that it's impacting your mental health, physical health, emotional health? I think when we really are honest with ourselves and we see those areas of our lives where we are compromising our mental, physical, and emotional health, we need to take a pause. We need to take a pause. And that's something that Catherine and I talk quite a bit about on the podcast of like, pausing is really about recognizing how unhealthy it is for ourselves when we continue down a path that's creating emotional, mental, or physical discomfort. And we do it because we've been programmed a lot of times to do it. So it's not like necessarily we're doing it on purpose at all. It's because that's kind of how we've been functioning. And so pausing gives us an opportunity to kind of see and to slow down and be able to take a step back and say, oh, wait a second. What is it that I'm really doing? And why am I pushing myself to such an extreme where now I am like mentally exhausted, physically, emotionally exhausted, whatever that might mean? And, you know, there's always going to be, and here's like kind of my caveat that I think is always important to put out there. There's always going to be seasons and chapters in our lives where we sign up for it intentionally and voluntarily, right? Like I know going into this next chapter, it's going to be more hours. It's going to ask more of me. It's going to need more energy, but I know it. I'm intentional about it. And I see an end in sight. Like I see a light at the end of the tunnel. What I see, and I know so many others out there in the HR field, is those who like, they don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. They've been in like this hamster wheel for God knows how long, and it's continued to kind of be in that place. And they're really frustrated. They're really burnt out. They're really exhausted. And they have to really like be honest with themselves at that point. If there is no light at the end of the tunnel, what are the boundaries for that individual that they are not setting And that can be a tough conversation to have. And I think we're coaching, and people like Catherine and myself and others who are out there saying, hey, we are here to help you kind of get over these hurdles. Because these are the hurdles, I think, for so many of us. That's like, when we're being truly honest, there are areas where we're not acting and we know deep down that we need to take action. So boundaries. Okay, next one, number 3, around what are the ways that we can start showing up as our best selves today. Number 3, cultivating a growth mindset. So I talked about in the podcast yesterday being able to go to a women's leadership conference last week. The week before that, I went to TEDx up in Portland, Oregon. Growth stuff is my jam. I love conferences. I love just opportunities, not only to network and connect with other people who also like personal and professional growth, but also because it like fuels me. And what was so interesting is at the most recent conference I went to, it talked about a statistics that I didn't even realize. Here I am thinking that everybody around me loves professional and personal growth as much as I do. And as it turns out, only about 1 in 10 people really like yearn for personal and professional growth. So here I am in HR all these years, and like that one hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, I guess there's a small percentage of us. However, if you're not someone who yearns for personal and professional growth, I believe that that's something just like exercise, just like sleep, just like water. You're gonna need to have to force feed that one, baby. I hate to say it like, to sound like I am not sensitive to, to an area that I know, for a lot of people is just not comfortable. It's not very enjoyable. But personal and professional growth is something we should all force ourselves to do. And unfortunately, here's my soapbox moment, but unfortunately, it's not something that we were taught in school the way that we really, truly deserve to be. And so here we are. I'm, almost 50. I don't know how old you are, but today is a great day. Today is a wonderful day for us to put personal and professional growth at a top point on our list. So that's something you have to be intentional about. You have to carve out the time, regardless of whether or not you want to or not. Not every like, even though I say I love going to TEDx and I love going to the Women's Leadership Conference, it's not every day. And so for me, there are the times where I have to push myself in the areas that I don't always enjoy it. But that's a part of like this journey in order to really have a desire towards becoming the best version of myself that I can possibly be. And I'm all in. I'm all in with that. And the people who I want in my community, or the people who are going to gravitate towards my community, are going to be those who want to be all in too. Because why not? Right? Why not? Like, here we are. We're in this like meat sack on earth, and why not? So anyway, number four, invest in self-care. And when I say invest, I'm really talking so much more about your time, energy, and heart than I am about money. And so investing in self-care is really about making a decision and then committing to it. What does it look like for you? Because, oh my gosh, there's so many different things out there that's going to get us so confused about different ways we can care for ourselves, different resources, different tools, different this, that, the other thing. And oh my gosh, it's exhausting. Like, let's take a moment and just breathe about how exhausting it is with the overwhelm of the number of things that come at us on what we should be doing to do better at taking care of ourselves. And the God's honest truth is nobody is going to be able to really decide for you on how to best take care of you than you. And so that's where I think investing in the time to really start doing the homework. I mean, tools like ChatGPT, I could do a whole class, and maybe I'll do one of my TTTs, the Thoughtful Tuesday turnarounds, I want to do on ChatGPT, because I didn't realize it until pretty recently that I'm a rarity too when it comes to utilizing ChatGPT for my mental health benefit, for the mental health benefit of people that I serve. And I didn't realize that that's not something other people do. And I want to communicate about that more because I think it's a real gift, ChatGPT, and others like it, right? Like putting in something that can help you in ways that is going to serve you and serve those around you. So yeah, kind of like a no-brainer to me. Anyway, number 5, practicing effective communication. You know, how we communicate with others is like something that really needs more attention. It needs our attention because we communicate constantly. And we're not just communicating verbally, y'all. We're communicating non-verbally. We're communicating with our body language. We're communicating when we don't communicate. It's all happening. Our energy is communicating. So if we're not like tuned in to like what it is we're truly communicating, like what we're authentically communicating, we're missing opportunities to like really connect with others. We're missing opportunities to really build bridges that sometimes, seem like are rubble. And so I think communication and effective communication is something that I want to do more talking about. So on these, live casts, and then also, with the podcasts, and just talking about it in general, because how we communicate really matters. And that is how we show up, right? So how we show up, if we're going into an employee conflict conversation and we already have a judgment in some way that we're pretty sure someone is a problem, or causing trouble, our energy is going to speak. Whether or not we are a good chameleon and we can keep, our opinions to ourselves, if we have an opinion, you'd be amazed. You would be amazed. And so I just really want to put that out there because I think as HR professionals, we miss a real opportunity to effectively communicate authentically. And that's something that I really want to build on more and more. All right, number 6, we're getting through my list of 10, so we're halfway through. Seek feedback and learn from it. Holy crap, is this not? I'm like golfing. I'm like, Dad, you'd be super proud of me. Holy crap, if this is not such a huge one. It's such a huge one. We all really want to believe that we accept feedback. Like, tell me your feedback. I totally want to hear anything you have to say. But do you now? Do you? And after being in HR for as many years as I've been in HR, y'all, getting feedback is hard for a lot of us. Getting feedback is really, really hard. And so I think self-awareness here is a superpower. And when it comes to receiving feedback and giving feedback and how it feels to give feedback and how it feels to receive feedback, like all of those things, working with a coach myself was a game changer when it came to feedback, because I think our relationships are created and they die based on our ability to navigate feedback, to navigate the ability to communicate feedback with one another, right? Because if I think about the collaborations I need to do with my managers on a day-to-day basis, those collaborations require they're going to require some trust, right? I need to trust that these guys are going to go in there and they're going to do the job that they need to do. They're the ones that are with those employees, right? Like I've had hilarious conversations with other HR peeps where we're like, oh my God, like if you really think about, they're out there in the wild, and that requires trust. And I absolutely, without a doubt, as an HR person, I think trust is a huge thing with anybody who has, a manager title that I work with. And so there's respect too. Like I respect their ability to do their job, and that's reciprocated, right? And when that's breaks down, then, that's an opportunity to be able to communicate with feedback and be able to build those bridges if they have, collapsed or there have been issues along the way. I mean, these are things that I think are so critical. I remember one time I worked for an organization where we talked about the stop, start, continue. If you've never heard of that, Google it, because it's really powerful and it's really, really honest. So if you have a leadership team and you feel like there is a good amount of trust to be able to like go there when it comes to stop, start, and continue, which means I'm going to have a one-on-one with you and I, okay? And that one-on-one is, I'm going to share with you things, or, one thing that I see that I would like for you to stop. Maybe it's like you come late every time you meet in our one-on-ones. Like, what the fuck? Like, what the frick, But let's say you're coming late every time. I'm like, yeah, you know what? If you can stop that, that'd be great. And then the next one is start. So what is it that they're not doing that you want them to do more of? One I remember one time was about feedback, and it was about, can we talk about feedback? Because this individual who I was struggling with was our accounting and finance person, and she and I just were not on the same wavelength in terms of communication. And so, part of our stop, start, continue was, hey, we need to like meet once a week. And that changed everything. Like when she and I finally started to like have these one-on-ones, not only did we become pretty good friends like immediately because we could actually see each other, we both felt seen, shifted everything, but it also changed, like all the misunderstandings were gone almost immediately. So sometimes it's about more feedback. Sometimes it's just about clearer feedback. So an exercise like stop, start, continue really lets you like put it all out there in a way that brings transparency, helps build trust, helps build that mutual respect, and it can be reciprocated from a place that then you can feel as though that relationship is growing. There's progress being made. So anyway, I highly recommend it, not for all teams. I think my current leadership team, I love you guys. If anyone is listening or watching right now, I love you guys. But I think it takes a little time to build that, because it is something that really you put out there, some vulnerability sometimes, and you don't always necessarily get it back. So you have to like be able to be prepared for that and be able to navigate through that uncertainty. So, okay. All right. Where are we? Number 7, set meaningful goals. So goal setting is something that, as an HR person, as a coach, as a mom, everything, goal setting matters. And being realistic with goal setting, being fluid with goal setting, if we need to move and shift, all of that matters. And I think when it comes to like wanting to show up each and every day as the best we possibly can, one of the things that I do, one of the little hacks I have, is like Catherine and I call it, is like being intentional every morning. What's my one thing? What is my one thing today? And some days I try to make that one thing really matter, right? And some days it's not going to be so much. Some days maybe I just want to make sure that I like get out of bed if I'm like not feeling good. But like most days, I'm going to want there to be some kind of impact, in my heart, or some impact in, what I'm doing at work or whatever. And so that one thing is like, what a cool thing for me anyway. It's helped me feel inspired as I'm getting out of bed. I'm like, okay, what's my one thing today? And now I've got a little spunk that kind of gets me moving a little bit more. And then you go from there, right? You've got your meaningful goals that might be like setting towards the end of the month, setting towards the end of the quarter, setting towards the end of the year. So whatever that looks like for you, again, we kind of go back towards it's got to make sense for you. But whatever that can be, doing that actually can be such an amazing driver to help remind you of how much, even though there might be more growth to come, you are making the progress towards becoming the best version of yourself, right? Like, I believe that without a doubt about myself and about everybody who's taking the time to listen or watch this, is that you are showing up as the best version of yourself every day. Every day that matters to you in terms of wanting to do the best you can and be intentional, you got it. You're doing it, right? Like, you don't need like the accolades and everything. It's that this is the work. And so being here and being engaged to continue to kind of navigate these choppy waters, this is it. I couldn't possibly ask for much more from myself. So I couldn't possibly ask for anything more for the people that listen or watch. So it's like, I think that to me is one of the true beauties of living the life that we have the opportunity to live. All right, number 8. Oh my gosh, I didn't even know this was coming. I completely forgot. Embrace lifelong learning. If my recent conferences to the TEDx up in Portland, the Women's Leadership Conference in Southern Oregon, I really love learning. I really love recognizing that there is so much more to learn and understand about everything. My coach, Derek Grant, talks about like the beauty of not knowing, the beauty of truly like absorbing as much as we possibly can, but at the end of the day, being a student, a wide open student every single day. And as an HR person in the last couple years, that has shifted me completely, because being a student at all times, being wide open at all times to everything I don't know, is like liberating beyond anything I could even put into words. It's like, it's hard to even explain, but I think once you start to kind of see and recognize what I'm talking about, it really starts to open up to you. It's like, oh my gosh, yeah. Like, at the end of the day, we've got all these policies, and we got our employee manual, and we got contracts sometimes, and we've got all this stuff and crap out there that we need to know. But it's like, once we start giving ourselves permission to not need to know any of it, and really instead be a steward and an ambassador to those that we serve at all times, then all of that slips away, right? We're going to do our best to make sure that we have all the information that we can, but we're also not going to attach ourselves into these shoulds and, all of that has to wash away, because then it allows us to kind of show up as the best that we possibly can be. And I think that's where the embracing of lifelong learning has been just one of the most beautiful gifts I've ever received. I've ever given myself. I mean, obviously, I continue to like shower myself with it all the time, and it's a conscious choice. But it's also like, it truly is like, I laugh at myself. I'm like, it's the gift that keeps on giving, y'all. But really, it really, really is. Okay, let's get this over with. I've been on here now for 32 minutes, but I'm having a blast. So, okay, number 9, practice gratitude. You're going to hear me talk every single time I ever come on live, not every video, but pretty much every time I talk about go on lives, you're going to hear me talk about meditation in some way. You're going to hear me talk about present moment awareness. All of those things, I think, are the secret sauce. And it seems so simple and yet so complicated. And practicing gratitude is one of the hacks, I think, when it comes to mindfulness and meditation, that I think is like the gateway that I've noticed for me whenever I start getting off track. When it comes to, daily meditation and just checking in with myself on my emotional self and thought work, as Catherine and I like to call it, whenever I find myself getting a little off track, the one thing that can get me most back on track in my life is around gratitude. And that is always knowing without a shadow of a doubt at any time of my life, regardless of the I'm gonna like burst into tears. At any time in my life, regardless of the circumstances, I can be grateful for at least 10 things. And if I am stumped, then I need to go simpler, and I need to go closer, right? I think we tend to sometimes get so caught up in like, these, my relationship, my marriage, this and that, when really it's about the person at the coffee shop who gave me eye contact and asked me about my day. And I could tell by the way they were looking at me, they actually cared. And these are the moments, and these are the opportunities I think that we can like tap into all the time, that are so beautiful when it comes to gratitude. And maybe it's not the interpersonal, maybe in our lives right now we're a little bit more isolated and we're in a little bit more of a solitude phase. So maybe it's about, here we are, May 7th, right? Maybe it's about getting outside and being grateful for the green, the flowers, the colors, the sky, the clouds, maybe the rain, whatever it is out in nature right now. God damn, God damn, is it beautiful right now, right? So there's a lot to be grateful for out in nature right now. Take the shoes off, really feel it and embrace it. That is a huge thing that we can be grateful for. So I think expressing gratitude and really coming into a place of feeling that gratitude, especially when things start spinning out of control in all, wherever that area might be in your life. That is such for me anyway, it's been such a huge and my number one way of getting me back on track. So, all right, finally, number 10, support and lift others. It's really only been in the last couple of years that I have completely shifted my mindset around supporting and lifting others. I truly believed that once I got my shit together, that then I would be able to help others, right? I would then be able to volunteer. I would then be able to just give in other ways. I'd be able to coach them from an understanding. And there's a lot of misbeliefs I think we have about ourselves and about our potential to help others in so many ways. And I held myself back, and I know a lot of people do as well when it comes to supporting others. And what I've really, really found over the past couple of years is the more that I have gone all in and really started to kind of put myself out there even more, when it comes to supporting and lifting up others, wow, have the gifts been exponential. And it hasn't been so much about it's reciprocated, right? Like, I think that's the other thing that we somehow believe, or at least I believed, that in order for me to really give on to others, I needed that to be reciprocated, that then meant I was appreciated and valued and it was good enough. And like, there's this weird thing that was happening in my brain. And so when it was not reciprocated, I then passed judgment about myself, and I would then usually retreat. When I stopped doing that, when I stopped that bullshit, I said, I'm going to continue to just pour myself out there, regardless of what I'm getting back. It's not always easy. And sometimes I need to retreat a little bit just for my own sanity, emotionally and mentally. But when I've continued to put myself out there and pour myself out there, regardless of the response back, it's not that it's reciprocated in the way that I would have ever thought. And that's the thing that's so fascinating about it. And I think what's so beautiful about it at the same time is it ends up coming back to me, but like in very different ways and like tenfold. And so it's hard to describe, it's hard to communicate, but it's really about like, it didn't matter. That reciprocation that I thought is reciprocation a word? can put in the comments, is it a word? But that reciprocation that I thought I really needed wasn't what I needed. And what I really did need is to just give without giving enough. And just to know it was coming from a heart of truly wanting to help and support. And from that place, I then have seen the response differently and in much more beautiful ways. So, all right. So we made it through the top 10 ways that you can start showing up for yourself in a more powerful way beginning today. And this was inspired. I wrote this list down after the episode yesterday, episode 15 of the Thrive and Shine HR podcast. So if you are not a subscriber to the Thrive and Shine HR podcast, please do so, because this podcast, we record an hour a week, Catherine Fry and I, and we talk about the subjects that in HR we don't talk about enough. And yesterday's episode on showing and telling and really learning how to show up as the person we most want to be in HR and in life was a true powerhouse of an episode. So anyway, check it out if you haven't already. Thank you for joining me today for my first ever Jen's Thoughtful Tuesday turnaround. I'm going to figure out how to say that better, but it's a 3T Triple T on Tuesdays. Thank you so very much. Have an amazing rest of your day, and we will see you soon. Bye, everybody.